All right, everybody, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to Out of Bounds. We are joined here by a very, very special guest in the building today, man. We have one of my mentors in the game, man, the dude that always gave me game, spit back. Kyle Lowry to Miami, man. Scoop B in the building. Scoop, how you feeling? Hey!
Thank you for having me.
Man, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. So let's get right into it, man. Obviously, first things first, NBA season is right around the corner. That is your specialty, everything like that. What are you looking forward to most? What are some of the storylines that you're looking forward to most this season?
I mean, it would be easy to say that the Lakers definitely did their thing. We know that. But I think what gets lost in translation, I think, in this aspect is that the real teams that are contending, it's really about four or five teams in my mind, the Lakers being one of them. But I'll add this as much as we'll be talking about the Lakers ad nauseum, I think some other, I guess, the word isn't minor details or smaller details, but just things that people should be paying attention to. I think, you know, recently it was said that Ben Simmons will, be practicing and doing 5-on-5 and some of the other stuff. I'm excited to see the redemption of Ben Simmons. I'm hopeful that that is a thing because I think he has a lot to prove. I think we're a season and a half away from the James Harden and Ben Simmons trade, and many people would say that the Sixers won, but then there was a big snafu with the whole James Harden thing in the summertime, and I want to see how that plays out as well. I still think that they have the potential to be contenders in the East at the very least, but the Boston Celtics may have a few things to say about that, but they gave up Marcus Smart. They did add Kristaps Porzingis. Some may consider him an injury-prone problem, but the defensive part of it, I think the Celtics will miss. There's a lot there, and then the Chris Paul, as well as Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson situation. Who will start? Will the Warriors give Klay the extension? There's a lot that I'm paying attention to there as well.
Oh no, 100% for sure, for sure. And then especially when you like kind of look at all those situations you brought up. For specifically today, the hottest topic is will or will not Dame be moved by training camp start, by media day next week? Yeah, what are you kind of hearing with that, and what do you personally think, based off, I guess, just what do you know, like former trends and stuff like that within the business?
Well, it's difficult. I think a lot has been made about whether Tyler Hero is a matchable asset on the Miami Heat side of things for Damian Lillard. But in recent days, reports have surfaced that the Toronto Raptors were a contender. To be honest with you, the Raptors do have assets that are interesting to Portland, namely guys like Pascal Siakam and more. But when I look at that situation with the Portland Trailblazers, to me, I think the James Harden situation is so very similar. The team that they're currently on, they want to get the most out of the other team. But then you look at some people will look at age. You look at Lillard's age, you look at Harden's age comparatively. What happens after that age, and will you still contribute to a team? When I look at this Lillard situation, it reminds me so much of Kevin Garnett right before he was out of his way out of Minnesota and found his way to Boston. So this situation, you look at it, it's like if you're Portland, if you give him to a contender, does it make us look bad? And the other point of contention is the fact that the Blazers never had to give Lillard to the team that he wanted to go to. You know that situation in Minnesota was a little different with Kevin Garnett because this was pre-heightened social media. This was quiet. You also had Kevin McHale who was making those moves to his former team and more. So I think in this particular situation, teams that do make the most sense, Miami still does make sense, but the fact that Portland is not being cooperative with the Miami Heat in getting Damian Lillard to his destination, I think the Blazers do feel a way about how this all has played out. Do I think he'll be moved by training camp? I'm not sure, but I do know that there are a lot of people lined up to get a piece of Damian Lillard and all that he brings to the table.
Right, Scoop, right, Scoop. Now, I had to get out the first couple topics out the way. You know, those are the hot topics everybody's tuning in for and stuff like that. But me personally, I wanted to get to the nitty gritty.
Okay.
Let's get to it, Scoop. Let's talk for real. Let's talk for real. So we saw the news about what happened with you and Bally recently, correct? And my question is, I recently wrote a column on this based off of a column that Karan Phillips, excuse me, I always used to call him Karan, and he told me that was the wrong way to pronounce his first name. Phillips over there at Deadspin. Let's get to it. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Why is the mainstream media, in particular sports journalism, trying to get rid of black male sports journalists who didn't play or coach in the sport that they're covering?
That's a very loaded question and a good question at the same time. I did read the article that Karen wrote. Karen is very good at what he does. So kudos to him. I have to check that out. However, um, in my opinion, I think that at the end of the day, TV networks are trying to or want to um, make the media landscape um, watchable because it's more to it than just a name. It has to be what draws eyes. Respectfully, Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, for example. Stephen A. Smith did play, but Stephen A. Smith gets eyes on the a top rated show on ESPN. Kendrick Perkins on social media or on television is a draw. It's more to it than just putting a broadcaster on television. There's so many other boxes that have to be checked as far as viewership and more. So I think in some aspects, you've seen certain retired players who are just as good as some of their media counterparts who did not play. Like, for example, you look at somebody like Richard Jefferson. I watched Richard Jefferson host The Jump and do very, very well segueing, uh, going to breaks, asking the right questions with guests and more, and really leading a conversation. I think there's this notion that athletes, to some, maybe this was an old notion, but that athletes are just athletes and journalists are just journalists. And I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of athletes who are very talented and good at what they do, and the landscape has welcomed that, and I think that's great. But on the flip side, people who are professionally trained, who have gone to school and who have put in the reps, that shouldn't take anything away from them. Also, I think both can be true. You can have a talented journalist and a talented former athlete. And not every athlete is an anchor. But there are athletes that know how to carry content and do what they need to do. Names like Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes on their show at Showtime. I think they do a remarkable job. But then you have certain guys, in my opinion, that are just there for their expertise and who don't necessarily have the expertise in guiding the conversation. I think Paul Pierce is very insightful. I think Kevin Garnett is very insightful. But I don't look at them as anchors or guides in the conversation of television, but they bring a lot of insight to the table and they're very good at what they do. It's no different than, a point guard knowing his role, a center knowing his role. I think that the media landscape is expanding. I think that there are so many voices out here. I think it's a traffic jam. And I think that, people are trying to find their way through the tunnel and get from point A to point B. But I do see a growing number of professional athletes who are, filling those particular roles. And I think that's challenging for media folks who are in the space. And I think that level of competition is only going to make me and anybody else better. So I welcome it, but I also think getting rid of those faces and those voices, I don't think that, one particular athlete speaks for all people and all athletes. I don't think that one particular journalist speaks for all other media members and all other athletes. But I think that it's a competitive market and it's getting even more and more competitive. I think I answered your question.
No. You did, Scoop. You did, Scoop. And I want to even take it a step further and see what you say with this. Now, obviously, I want to be careful with this as a media member myself, but I can't. I got to keep it real with you, Scoop. I'm talking to you one on one here. and I just want to know your thoughts kind of on my belief, what it feels like, what's happening, what media is kind of pushing right now. It feels like a lot of mainstream media is pushing out the smart black man. They're pushing out the smart black man out the picture for the sake of portraying more caricature figures in media, in sports media. What is your kind of like your take on that, on that take? Because you look at Brian Gumble, show canceled, Bomani Jones, show canceled, you pushed out at Valley Sports. Smart black men who just do their job well, it seems like it's pushed out in place of black men who just scream and play character all day. Like, you know, and if you take that as a diss, and you watching that and you take that, hey, I stand on 10 toes. You know where to come at me. You know, I'm on social media, all that. Scoop, where do you stand on that?
I think that there are so many other. I see where you're coming from, but I'll add. I think there are some other factors involved in this process. Number one, ratings. Number two, I think you've looked at the strike on Hollywood and all that has come with that, and it's not just sports broadcasting; it's also entertainment, where certain roles with people who are intelligent black men might be affected as well. But I'll add this. Again, it goes back to the point about ratings. If the numbers aren't where they need to be, you know, you got to can it. My situation was a little different than theirs because the regional sports network formula has changed a lot with cord cutting, which may actually tie into what we're talking about because people aren't paying for cable subscriptions anymore. People, the Roku and the Fire Stick have taken over a lot, or even streaming, however which way you do, which probably accounts for ratings. I know that ultimately, and I learned this in grad school. I was in grad school from 2009 to 2011, and I took this feature writing class, and my professor said to me, 10 years from now, 10 years or more, we're going to be discussing not so much media um, alignment, meaning major network, but more along the lines of um, brands and personalities. And those will stand the test of time more than media alignment and more. So I think for me, this shift was expected, um, and you have to move along with the shift. And to me, I wouldn't profess to be an expert on this particular topic, but it relates to some of what you're seeing in Hollywood. The shift with how much people are talking about AI. You got to shift with that. You got to shift, just like in media, you have to shift with the changing of how people are digesting their news. So I do think what you're saying, as far as the intelligent black male, how has value. I think that in today's society, people want a Swiss Army knife. I think people want someone who is both book smart, street smart, who is knowledgeable about the weather as much as they are about sports and more. I don't want to minimize your thought process. I think there are people who think that we need an athlete to tell it because a journalist didn't play. An athlete can tell a story, no different than when you look at podcasts, right? So you look at Nori and his podcast, the Drink Champs podcast. The thing that makes him so valuable is the fact that he can tell war stories as a rapper, but he can also bring his rapper friends on and they can have a conversation. No different where you have $1 million worth of game with Gillian Wallow because of their experiences being in the industry. There's certain things they can relate to with their guests. A lot of it with athletes and entertainers is relatability with the person who's interviewing them, the comfortability. For me personally, I'm 6'5". I've my family are entrepreneurs, and I went to college, but I also can hang with you in other settings outside of just the classroom and the court and more. I think it's adaptability, relatability. But the caricature part still plays a big role because people want to be entertained. People's attention spans are shorter and shorter by the day because of a myriad of things. I just think there's a lot of moving parts. I can't just target it to just educated black men or replacing them with caricatures. Although I'm aware that those things do exist.
No, 100%, 100%, and I appreciate that response there. I also kind of want to ask you, kind of going along those lines. I've seen it like firsthand of what you do. You said like your graduate professor told you about, that brands and like just kind of status was going to take over, personalities was going to take over
Right.
the landscape. You branded yourself as Scoop B. You branded yourself as someone I've seen get it out the mud. Someone who was going to these cities and stuff like that. You went down to Atlanta for like a month last year, like last season at the end of the regular season. I was like, man, Scoop's there. Like it was just like, seeing things like that, building the relationships, dapping up John Collins, talking to John Collins and stuff like that. I guess, just what was that process like for you of branding Scoop B? Even, obviously there's an obvious part there of you, being the kid genius when you were a child, and kind of like just building the brand up from there. But, like just what went into, yeah, Scoop B, like, and like the process of that and going through the years of going from child star to like respected adult in the industry.
Well, I think the cool thing about my time at Valley was traveling. I want to start there. You know, when you talked about the Atlanta part and moving around. This past season, I was a lot of places making moves, anywhere from Paris to Atlanta to San Antonio to Houston to Philadelphia to Oklahoma City to a myriad of places. And, it's a blessing. Los Angeles, Las Vegas, it's a blessing. And not only moving in those cities, but having family and friends throughout the country that, kept me grounded and really just enjoyed the work. The work still comes first. But I'll add this. I think starting young has its advantages because you see who the players are and you're able to make your mistakes early. But I'll add this. Um, some may consider my work, having started at 12 years old doing radio as a kid, some with the Nets, having a radio show with the Nets young. Some might consider that, being a child prodigy. And then when you look in that whole child prodigy lane, um, a lot of times once you start, you can't stop. Um, and when you're in the fishbowl in the public eye, you're always looked at and you're not able to make your mistakes and grow. I'm thankful that even though I started young, I was able to go from, doing radio as a kid for 2 years to going to high school and being a normal high school kid, growing, still practicing my craft, whether it was being sports editor for the newspaper, announcing and DJing basketball games, going to college, going to a small school, being a big fish in a big pond, growing, doing things there, making my mistakes, being a normal college kid, going to grad school, doing all the things I need to do, and then, living in my grandmother's basement, struggling to pay rent, freelancing to do what I needed to do. This was over 10 years ago. I often tell this story. For me, out of grad school, I didn't have, networks and people knocking on my door. I lived in my grandmother's basement apartment. I had a double door fridge. The freezer side refrigerated my food. The refrigerator side did not work. I cooked on hot plates, George Foreman grill, microwave, crock pot. I didn't have a stove. I was anywhere from freelancing at 10 to 12 different publications at a time. I was adjunct professoring off and on at points on food stamps, and really just building and growing. And I knew even back then what I could do. And I just, you know, continued to be me. So, those early days for me after grad school, were not glamorous, and everybody's journey to get from point A to point B is different. I'm thankful for my personal journey. I think the things that made me me and the things that allowed me to grow was, even though I wasn't sitting at a company collecting a check, I was freelancing, waiting for the mailbox money to come in from doing a job. But I built solid relationships with athletes, rappers, gatekeepers, and more. Which, your relationships are your currency in this aspect. It wasn't always easy. Life was not always fair. But I lean on those moments. When I look back at what I've done, I think I'm more thankful and more appreciative of those years than I was my early start as a kid. because I really did a lot of grunt work and building and doing what I needed to do then. And everything else was icing on the cake. You go from you know living in your grandmother's basement and building your own personal brand to getting a call from CBS Sports Radio and really learning the digital landscape, how to write headlines, how to find the most important, compelling thing in an interview and turning that into a digital viral moment. Had I not gone through those things, I don't think I would be as appreciative of the journey now. And I think that it's so important to appreciate the journey rather than just the destination and where you're sitting. I know that's cliche, but I know it to really be true.
100%, 100%. And even going along those lines, you just brought up something that I thought was very interesting. I want to ask you about Jazzy because Jazzy's doing her thing up there in New York right now. Kind of like how you were, like you were on Inside the NBA, you were at the Maharaja and everything. So like seeing Jazzy doing what she's doing now, like what word of advice would you have for Jazzy and stuff like that?
So, when you say Jazzy, which Jazzy are you talking about?
Hold on. When I come back up, am I up? I'm good. Yeah, okay, I'm good. Jazzy, like I think her name is Watch Jazzy. No, that's not Watch Jazzy. That's Watch Jazzy's Jasmine Brown. This Jazzy TV. She's the young girl in New York. She interviews Jay Z.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yes. Yes.
I know that. I've seen a few interviews with her. I like her energy. I like her persona. There's a lot of young kids that I'm seeing in that space. And the thing that I think I appreciate is the independence that they have in doing it, where social media is at their fingertips and they're able to build and construct their audience um, so organically. What I have found is there's a lot of young kids who are making things happen. It reminds me so much of myself, um, but I think they're more fearless than I was in some aspects, and I admire it quite a bit. I would encourage Jazzy and any of the other young reporters. There's a young man that I ran into in LA a couple months ago. I think he was interviewing football players. I don't know. I don't remember his name.
I know you're talking about the real smart kid that says all the stats.
Yes,
That kid is amazing. I got you, Scoop. I'm gonna look it up as you
talk. I don't remember his name, but my videographer sent me some video recently of us talking. We were at an event, and I ran into him and his mother, and I was like, man, like, yo, I admire what he does. If I can do anything to help, and genuinely mean it, just let me know. But I'm really excited for the future of this industry, really and truly, because there are so many young kids who get it early and understand the process of branding. I understood it when I was a kid. I knew what I liked. I knew that I wanted to do something in this field, but I think the walls have kind of come down some on just being a journalist. You can interview athletes or celebrities, but still have your hand in fashion. You can still have your hand in architecture. You can play the sport. You can do so many different things. And so Jazzy is on a list of so many other young kids who are on this path. It's confidence building. And it's really life changing, and so I'm happy for her and others who have decided to do to pursue that path.
Jeremiah 1-5, that's his name.
There you go, Jeremiah.
So Jeremiah, we both friends. We're both fans. We're both big fans. Yes. I guess just wrapping up now. We're running out of time here, but I guess are there any other words that you have? Oh, I guess we can wrap up with this, man. When you think about your journey, and like you said, all the odd jobs you had to do, all the turmoil that you've gone through with family and stuff like that, personal issues and everything like that. What did it mean to you when you were walking just around the arena in Houston during the McDonald's All-American game, and LeBron James goes, "What up, Scoop?" and he speaks to you first, and he knows your name. What did that mean to you, man?
It was cool. I'll be honest with you. I wish I could have called my mom My mom passed away last year, and my mother was very integral in targeting or tapping into my talent. I like to talk. I like basketball. I like sports, and you have those moments sometimes where I wish I could call her and tell her, but I know she's watching. I talk to her every day, and I'm thankful for her sacrifice um, to put me in certain positions that I'm in now. And I think it's bigger than that. I think for me, even my last place, my last stop, um, before she passed, she was able to see that what we work towards. So I think that moment, with being around LeBron and him knowing me and seeing his son play and see the next generation. LeBron and I both graduated high school in 2003, and I've watched his journey since high school. He was being heralded since he was a sophomore, and so just all of that. Those are moments I wish I could share with my mother in the physical and but I know she's watching, and I'm proud to be her son. But bigger than that, I'm glad to continue what we started and to keep going.
Well, Scoop, just to kind of taking off the reporter cap for a little bit, I appreciate you so much. And like you said, I know your mother is proud of you. And for those of y'all who don't know, like Scoop, my last job, I was in Mississippi. And I was calling, I was talking to Scoop on the phone in my apartment in Mississippi, 1 bedroom apartment, $800 apartment, man, for hours, man, just asking him all types of questions. He was giving me all types of game on like independence, how to get out the mud, and trust me, like I still carry those conversations, near and dear to my heart today. So thank you for all that you've done for the next generation, for reporters like me, for media members like me, and young black men, and helping uplift us to get to that next level. And appreciate you for continuing to be an intelligent black man and not selling out and playing some character and some person that you're not, for the sake of climbing up the ladder. I just appreciate everything, man. So I just wanted to give you your flowers and thank you for all the great work you're doing, and keep doing it.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you. I say this at the end of every interview. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And what do you have coming up? I know you just had another interview come. I think it was with Funk Flex.
Yeah, we took Funk Flex and I just spoke recently, and it's hit the blogs. He's talked about. I have a new series that dropped last month called Classics with Scoop B. Carl Banks, who is the owner of Starter, as well as two-time Super Bowl champion with the New York Giants. He played with the then Washington Redskins, now the Commanders as well. But he, as well as Funk Flex, were the first two guests for Classics with Scoop B. I just got confirmation from somebody else. I can't say the name yet, but that will be forthcoming very soon on the Classics with Scoop B. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, search Scoop B TV, where you can catch up on all of the Classics with Scoop B, as well as another series that I did through something called Scoop B Selects, interviewing a lot of NBA legends. There's a partnership with the NBA Retired Players Association. Anybody from Byron Scott to Sean Marion to Drew Gooden to Antoine Carr and more. Every single interview that we did went viral in some way for something somebody said. But in addition to that, you can subscribe to Scoop B Radio Podcast, as well as check out all my work at Bovada, where I executive produce, as well as talent scout for the sports gambling network there. I have a weekly series called Scoop B Talks through the network. So be checking out all those things from now till whenever. You can check all that out. And again, man, I appreciate you having me on.
Well, Scoop, we appreciate you stopping by, rolling out. Remember, you're welcomed as always. And until next time, for Out of Bounds, I'm Rashad Milligan. Please take care of yourselves.